Okay, in this session we're going to talk about the clutch column and the two basic types of installations. This particular one is where we have a shorter crankshaft and we use a component called a D-spacer. Okay, and the second type of application is an application where the crankshaft is longer and we use this 1/4 inch thick hardened washer, special washer. Now this is an important part. If this washer caves in or if it bends, you know, it's not the correct kind of washer, actually the clutch will loosen up and fail. So it's important that you get the right kind of washer. In our case, the washers that we make here, they're 1/4 inch thick and it's hardened steel, so they're tough. They're not going to cave away. So, okay, let's talk about the first type. You note here that gray area that you see. The red is the bearing, the gray area is the D-spacer, and then this hashed area is the crankshaft itself, and of course this is the bolt. Note that there's a gap between the D-spacer and the crankshaft. That is absolutely critical, and let me explain. When we torque this, in this case it's 55 foot-pounds of torque, when we torque that, we're exerting 6,000 pounds of force against the inner race of that pulley bearing. When we do that, we're squeezing the clutch. We're sort of compressing everything together. All the inner race of this bearing to the rotor, which is in blue here, the inner race of the pulley bearing, again to the D-spacer, and we're squeezing everything together. If that crankshaft touches the D-spacer, we go from 6,000 pounds of force to 0, and the clutch will fail. So it's imperative that we have some kind of gap here. The second application is very similar. You note that the crankshaft, it comes short of the special washer here, and that there's a gap there, right? But here's what's different about this one. That crankshaft has to make it into the pulley bearing. If it comes even just a little bit short of that pulley bearing, what happens is the pulley will waller around and it'll fail nearly immediately. It's a catastrophic failure. So what we need is this crankshaft to make it into that bearing and still have a gap. So you may have a case where it's a special application or you've swapped the engine out. In our engineering department or technical support has asked you to measure your crankshaft length. What they're talking about, this is a drive pulley, but what they're talking about is we need the length from here. This would be the clutch. This is where the clutch seats on the drive pulley. So you see that this is we call this in this case a coil bearing, and it seats on that. We need from here to the end of the crankshaft. We need that fairly accurate, say within a 1/16 of an inch. And what we'll do with that measurement is we'll lay that into our CAD drawing for that model clutch, and we'll make sure that the crankshaft terminates in the right spot, and that if we need any kind of special washers or anything to make sure that one, we preserve a gap and that the crankshaft's in the right spot, that we could sell you. We have a bunch of these special size washers, different ones, to make sure that that termination point is correct. And again, we'll lay that into CAD and do that very accurately, but we need a very accurate measurement to ensure that we get that right. So those are the two types of mounting applications, with the D-spacer and without, and hopefully that helps. Thank you.